What's up, everyone? It's Shaletta. I'm here getting a phone for one of my newly minted teenagers with Xfinity Mobile. They've got great options, affordable plans, and solid coverage that works for our whole family. With Xfinity Mobile, my daughter can stay connected with me wherever she goes. And did you know when you sign up, you can get an extra phone line free for a full year? Switch to Xfinity Mobile today for more savings, more smiles, and more ways to stay connected.
Want your boss to put some real action behind the rhetoric when they talk about making your workplace more inclusive? Find out how to hold their feet to the fire and demand diversity on the Diversity Dude podcast.
Hello there, and welcome back to the Diversity Dude podcast. I'm your host, Lambert Fisher, marriage and family therapist, award-winning author, and national speaker on the topic of multicultural awareness and diversity. And for those of you who are interested in even more positive and encouraging tips and strategies beyond what I share in podcasts like this, then feel free to check out my award-winning book, Diversity in Clinical Practice, nationally recognized for the unique way in which it addresses the often difficult topic of multicultural awareness and diversity. Designed for more than just therapists, if you're a helping professional in any way, Diversity in Clinical Practice can help you meet the greatest variety of cultural needs possible for those whom you serve. And it's available in paper and audiobook versions for your convenience. And if you haven't heard it yet, I invite you to visit TED.com and check out my talk called What to Do When You Offend Someone, where I offer a positive and practical perspective on how to navigate unintentional offenses in daily life. To date, it has been viewed over 500,000 times. Check it out for yourself, and if you're encouraged by it as well, share it with a friend. And whether it be through my one-on-one relationship building efforts as a therapist or my informing and empowering efforts as an author or speaker, know that my personal mission is to do my part to improve the world one strengthened relationship at a time. So, today I want to share with you an encouraging perspective on navigating a politically divided workplace. Now, someone recently reached out to me and asked, Lambert, I heard your most recent podcast where you addressed how I can personally adjust healthfully after an election that divided the whole country, and even as it relates to politically divided relationships and intimate relationships. However, where I struggle is in relationships with people who I don't have an intimate relationship with, but feel nonetheless tied to. And that is my relationship with my job and my coworkers. You see, before the election, I admit that I had a certain idea who my coworkers were. They said we interact positively enough. And since I thought I knew what the majority of the country believed, I naturally assumed that my coworkers felt the same way as I did. Now, with the election turning out the way it did and seeing how there are millions of Americans on both sides of the political aisle, it now makes me question everything. I find myself analyzing everything my coworkers say, everything they do, even the potential meaning behind every bumper sticker in the parking lot. Not only am I frustrated that the election is still impacting me after all of this was supposed to be over, if I'm being honest, I don't even know that I feel safe at my job anymore. What should I do? Now, my first response is always to be very clear that I have no intentions of telling you whether or not you should quit your job. That's a personal decision that you need to make on your own, so that you can own the advantages and the disadvantages of that decision moving forward, no matter how well it turns out. That being said, I would like to provide a few considerations to help in that decision-making process so that it can be as healthy of a decision as possible moving forward. Consideration number one, determine your actual safety risk. On one hand, facts are facts and feelings are feelings. You will do well to make this distinction clear to yourself at all times. On the other hand, both facts and feelings matter. People often make the mistake of prioritizing one or the other for all time to the detriment of their well-being. Instead, you must evaluate both facts and feelings at all times and determine one situation at a time which decisions are most respectful of your facts and feelings, especially when it comes to safety. So how does that apply here? Well, if you have reason to believe, maybe not irrefutable proof, but actual reason nonetheless, that those whom you work with feel more free after the election to actively say or do things to you that are not consistent with maintaining your physical or emotional safety and well-being, then you definitely should consider leaving that environment. Your physical safety matters, your emotional safety matters, and you owe it to yourself to protect yourself from active threats to your safety. Now, if you do not have reason to believe that you are in actual danger, then you owe it to yourself to determine whether the mere existence of others with different beliefs makes you feel so uncomfortable that you cannot adequately accomplish your job responsibilities. If so, then own that individual struggle. It's okay to have feelings too, and then take steps to explore ways to build adequate boundaries against those discomforts while on the job, or to determine whether or not you need to leave that environment altogether to make progress in this area. It is not up to someone else to tell you what you can and cannot handle, nor is it up to someone else to tell you what you should or should not have to handle in the first place. But before those decisions get made, you will do yourself justice by determining whether or not you can work in that situation because it's actually more undesirable than it is unsafe. Which leads to consideration number two: accept the temporary inevitability of division. This one's controversial. Let me explain. While I have a genuine hope that the extremely divided and polarized nature of this country today will not always be the way things are, I do also recognize that how long that takes to change is above my pay grade to determine. I also know that however long that takes, it won't be tomorrow. Because of this, you will do well to accept that whether it be in your current job or the next job you find, it is likely that there will be some coworker who voted the same way as you and some others who voted differently. Sure, there are environments where you can likely find people of like mind. However, for one, many people thought they were in that environment already, only to discover that they were wrong. And two, finding people who believe the same things on every particular issue is not a long term solution to decreasing that polarization that we see in this country. Instead, we need to learn to coexist and interact positively with each other despite our differences. Now, I'm not delusional. I know that some decisions, especially those that lead to large political divides, have more weight than others. Such that even if someone is not actively trying to physically or emotionally harm you, just knowing that they support political values that have historically or recently, or even feared in the near future, contributed to your harm, the harm of someone you care about, or simply unjustified harm to your fellow citizens, even if indirect, it can be difficult to interact positively or professionally respect the person who shows themselves to be indifferent to these harms. To this, I say again, it is in your best interest to accept the temporary inevitability of division. We're surrounded by it. You're not going to change it tomorrow. Instead of believing that your frustration will lead to a safe utopia of sameness, take steps to create a sense of safety where you are in the midst of that division, which is actually consideration number three. Take steps to create a sense of safety within a divisive environment. Divisive division isn't always unsafe. It's sometimes just undesirable and inconvenient. And in cases like this, you can take steps to create more convenience than inconvenience. For example, choose to reduce the frequency of direct political divisive conversations. After all, it takes two to argue. If you don't want to be a part of a politically divisive conversation, leave the conversation. Either they will get the hint and stop trying to bait you into arguments, or they will take steps to harass you and pull you back in, then giving you ammo to call out their disruptive, unprofessional behavior of harassment to those in authority who can then correct that behavior. Another example is to make intentional efforts to steer conversations toward things that are not only not political, but which are more inclusive. Keep an eye out for non-political topics of discussion that seem to get everyone engaged and find ways to bring these topics up before their more divisive topics can take over and cause separation. And while this mere distraction technique may seem basic, its benefits can be significant. In addition, beyond the basics, this can be the beginning of creating positive relationship strengthening interactions among coworkers that have nothing to do with politics and all to do with building healthy relationships despite political differences. With all of these in mind, my hope for you is that you will be able to healthily evaluate whether or not your work environment is actually too unsafe for you to remain. If it is, then leave with no regrets and protect yourself accordingly. However, if it is politically inconvenient, then keep your eyes open for ways in which you can avoid that inconvenience when needed. And if the opportunity arises to change that environment into one where, even if political beliefs don't change immediately, you can still get the job done without hating those who are working alongside of you to do the same. And with that, I'll say thanks again for listening in to the Diversity Do podcast. If you have any diversity related questions that you'd like me to address on an upcoming podcast, or if your organization is in need of a shame free and empowering guest speaker or training on this often sensitive topic, then feel free to reach out to me directly at www.diversitymadesimple.com. And if you know anyone else who can benefit from a positive and encouraging perspective on this often difficult topic of diversity, feel free to send them a link to this podcast so they can be encouraged by it as well. Or share with them my award-winning book, Diversity in Clinical Practice, available at Amazon.com. And don't forget to visit TED.com and check out my talk on what to do when you offend someone. I hope it inspires you and that you share it with someone else so that they can be inspired as well. And as usual, I look forward to addressing as many topics as possible in future podcasts to help you improve as many relationships as possible at work, at home, and in your community. As always, remember this: you don't need to know everything about everyone in order to have a positive impact on someone. Thank you all for tuning in, and have a great day.
Tune in each week and find out how to demand and implement diversity at your job. To hear more, check out previous Diversity Dude shows on ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com.
You know Shaletta makes you laugh, but did you know Shaletta Brundage can also make you think and boost your business? Media personality, activist, and comedian Shaletta Brundage founded Shaletta Makes Me Laugh to celebrate and share the best of Black culture. It's a podcasting platform. You can download 10 weekly podcasts hosted by African-American subject experts at ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com is also a production house, creating broadcast-quality commercial content. And Shaletta and her team of storytellers create powerful promotional campaigns to get businesses the brand awareness they're looking for. Some of Minnesota's top businesses trust Shaletta, and you can too. Get out the word about your events and products and get in front of communities of color with ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com. She's got the power to help your business.